Hi, Spots and Cheap Pops. Hello, folks. This is Silicon Steve Alley, and I'm joined by Vladi Dottie, and we are going to be remembering and celebrating a pioneer, a legend, and for my money, the best babyface intercontinental champion ever, and also for my money, the greatest professional wrestler to never hold a major world championship. And I'm talking about Scott Hall, aka Razor Ramon. And this guy had it all, man, and he was so historic from his beginnings, even in AWA, and his beginnings of starting out with Dusty Rhodes, his hero when he was a kid growing up with Dusty Rhodes, and having Dusty put him on his own show, and then he gets to AWA with Vern Gagne, then to WCW with a couple just failed gimmicks, never getting an opportunity, and then finally they clicked. You know, with little help from Diamond Dallas Page to set the stage of a new look, the Diamond Stud went up and he became Razor Ramon, a brainchild from Scott Hall, became Razor Ramon, pitched the idea to Vince McMahon, talked in the Scarface voice that would be so iconic with the Razor Ramon character. And he was off to the races, started a program with Macho Man Randy Savage, Ric Flair, and also a returning Mr. Perfect at the Survivor Series. Went and challenged Bret the Hitman Hart for the World Championship at a Royal Rumble. And he was a big man, but he knew how to go. He knew how to work. You know, Hulk Hogan and Kevin Nash, they weren't the best workers in the world, but Scott Hall was big, athletic, and he could work. He knew how to do an arm drag. He knew how to do an arm bar. I was watching a match today in 2001, actually, in New Japan Pro Wrestling. Scott Hall did the old 1, 2, 3 kid. He did a little bit that hip toss, and then he had the arm bar, smacked his head around, and this young kid just got his ass kicked. But Scott Hall got a little too big for his britches, just like the 1, 2, 3 kid, and that kid rolled him up for a 1, 2, 3 count. That kid wound up being a little guy by the name of Tanahashi in New Japan Pro Wrestling. So just a little bit of a tidbit there. Even Scott Hall always gave back, and that was one thing that, with all of his problems, the one thing that was consistent after he made it, he always, and once he got through some of the rough spots the last several years, he's been a great leader, storyteller, and a great mentor to a lot of the young people. He is being respected throughout this industry, more so than you're going to see with Kevin Nash, more so than you're going to see with Hulk Hogan, more so than you're probably going to see with most. Scott Hall was respected. You see Dr. Britt Baker, a lot of her ring attire. It's an homage to Scott Hall. And finally, just recap his career, the iconic character, the babyface turn that turned into a fantastic Intercontinental Championship run, which was probably the biggest highlight, WrestleMania 10 ladder match. And then he leaves WWE, and he is the first member of the New World Order NWO, which is to this day is still the best storyline, at least the most popular and iconic storyline in the history of professional wrestling. And it was the coolest group possibly of all time. And he was the coolest motherfucker in that group. And you can look back on some sadness because of what could have been with his career. But at the end of the day, once he made it through, he really was a great human being and a great guy. And he's going to be extraordinarily missed. As the bad guy says goodnight.
You're absolutely spot on. And your feelings about him, Steve Valley. I've been in a negative mood for most of today. You and I corresponded via text, and when we heard that he was on life support, and then woke up this morning and saw Kevin Nash's post about him, which must have been gut wrenching for Kevin Nash to go and type and communicate that to the world. As you know, you're imagining one of the larger than life characters and personalities that we know and the world knows and knew is waiting for his family just so he can go and cross over. And and it's amazing. I think they took him off life support, and he lasted like over 5 hours or so before he actually finally cashed out. And not an easy day by all accounts. But then I did some reminiscing, and honestly, when I wasn't necessarily watching quite too much wrestling back during the Razor days. I was well aware of him. I checked in a bit. I was like, oh, this guy has some talent, but I wasn't necessarily committing too much. I was more into like, professional basketball, Yankees, all that sort of stuff. And around that time, actually, too, I was working for the New Jersey Nets at the time at the Continental Airlines Arena, and I recall going there early on a weekend game. I think it was a Saturday, and previous to the game, uh, just as my luck would have it, they had a WWF event, and I had access, so I'd walk through the backstage area where the locker rooms were. And I'll never forget one of the guys that I saw immediately, and I knew, because I checked in a little bit, was none other than Razor Ramon. And here I'm already working with like NBA players, so put it in perspective in terms of height and builds and things. And I saw Razor, and I was like, man, this guy's a monster. The way he's built, 6'7", shoulders broad, and you could just tell the personality was there, and not that he was over the top or anything, but there was something to him. And so then, as time goes on, as life would have it, you have something that happens like the NWO, and namely Hall and Nash leaving WWF for WCW, which back in the day, I was always sort of checking in with WCW, especially with Dusty and Flair. So, especially Flair still being there at that point, and Dusty as well. All of a sudden these guys show up, and and it was almost like a little bit of an invasion angle. You're like, what is this? Is this real? And you're questioning what the situation is. And you could have no other better pilot than Scott Hall with all that personality to arrive on the enemy's TV show and announce that they're arriving, and it's him. And then 2 weeks later, all of a sudden Kevin Nash is there. And then next thing you know, they're putting Eric Bischoff through a table, and they just start snowballing with all this momentum. And then, of all people that joins them, is none other than Hollywood Hulk Hogan. And you have the three of them running roughshod over the wrestling industry for how many years, and it became the coolest gimmick, as you mentioned. And most importantly, as you said, he was the coolest out of all of them. Out of all the NWO, like if I could like hang with any of them, it was Scott Hall. My eyes were drawn to him. I couldn't wait for him to get the microphone. As Nash is talking, if they had a wide camera shot, I'm watching Hall's like mannerisms and just who he's like, who he's hanging out with and reacting to, and the guy was just so on every time he went out there. It was just so entertaining. And you and I were hanging out back then as well, and lo and behold, you start wanting to be like part of the NWO. You and I would see each other in bars, and what we're doing the two sweets to each other. Anybody who's doing that with us, you knew that night you were all cool with everybody. And honestly, if you don't think if you don't think Scott Hall had anything to do with that, we're crazy. So it's just little things like that, and it's sad because we also saw the downfall, or one of the downfalls, or like no pun intended, one of the valleys here in his life as time went on, where he started drinking. Pills were also part of the equation. They even made it part of the storyline and made him look bad. It was remember the time he threw up on Bischoff and all that sort of stuff. And the guy rebounded from that. And what was great was he didn't rebound through it in a storyline sense. He rebounded through it in a real life sense. It became an inspiration.
Well, he went through a lot of dark times before that, before he cleaned his stuff up.
Oh yeah.
But yeah.
And he did it. There's of course there's footage of him showing up at indie shows and get barely, to call it a train wreck is almost like a compliment. Some of the lows that he hit on a professional level. The plane flight from hell. He was also one of the scapegoats of that as well in some ways. I mean, I'm sure Maybe he was a little bit involved in some of the negative things that happened there. But when you get back to it, where he goes and reaches out to Dallas Page, is one of his best friends in the business, and he sees that, how Jake Roberts is turning his life around, and Scott wants another chance, and they extend that lifeline to him. And I'll never forget when I saw the footage of Scott of Paige and Jake Roberts going and picking him up from the airport. He was in a wheelchair and couldn't even get out of it. He was bloated. You could tell, just, I don't know if it was alcohol or even pills at that point, but he was on death's door. And we probably got another 15 years or so with him, because 8 years from that. So then you basically were able to go and he was able to respond and give us that much more. And, that's where his story of redemption is a positive one. And it's one that when people look back on it, they need to pay attention that you have a second chance. You got to take it, not give up, and continue. And listen, he died in a hospital trying to better himself with another broken hip. And just as his unfortunate luck would have it, a blood clot got him and caused 3 heart attacks, and he passed. And, instead of being kept alive on machines, they gave it a shot. They disconnected it, and, he crossed over. So, it's a sad day. I'm going to miss seeing him randomly on the internet, but I will say this: if there's any doubt that he impacted the industry, just take a look at social media. Take a look at Raw tonight, which on a side topic was almost unwatchable. But as they go and do the montage and the story of Razor Ramon and Scott Hall, pay attention to Corey Graves. Corey Graves is a complete professional at this point, and he could barely hold it together. Yeah. And it was from the heart, and it was as genuine as could be. And I felt that. And I thought that was just so bittersweet to see somebody like Corey Graves, and you see the impact that Scott Hall had on him. Kevin Owens opened up the show with "Hey Yo." I mean, these are people that we're watching today, and just his influence has been felt throughout. And again, looking at social media, seeing all these wrestlers, and there's not a bad word being said about the guy. So I'm happy that I was able to see his career, actually see him sort of in person. Didn't interact with him or anything, but I felt it. I felt that that presence there. And then you see, and we're able to witness the peaks, the valleys, and the resurrection of the guy himself. And from my taste, easily the greatest Hall of Fame speech. It was just short and sweet. It hit a home run in my eyes. His presence up there looked awesome. Just tan, the white jacket, the black shirt, the dual personalities, if you will, of good and evil right there in front of you. And we were once again cheering for the bad guy. So, much respect to his family, his fans, and just the internet wrestling community. We were a better world for being entertained and impacted by Scott Hall, aka Razor Ramon.
Yeah, and to Senator your sentiment, RJ City said the same thing. He said professional wrestling is a better place because Scott Hall was in it, and not just creatively. I mean, the things that he and Nash did to open up the guaranteed contracts, it did it for all of them. I mean, they didn't do it for everybody. Let's be honest. They'll tell you they did it for themselves. Right. But that changed the way business was done. Vince McMahon had to do business completely different because of what these two men did. And Scott Hall was the first one. So it was just a sad day, as you said. We move on. And it just, the other thing is too, he suffered a lot from mental health, and he suffered a lot from alcoholism, and he needed help. And it took him a long time to get the help. And one thing he told everybody is like, look, don't wait till you're 50 something before you get your help. Get it earlier. And from a personal level, I quit drinking almost 2 years ago now. And I have a feeling if my life went a couple different ways, I might not quit drinking. And if I don't quit drinking, who knows how much longer I would have been around, I might have even checked out by now.
Right.
So it's he owns his mistakes. He's got a great kid. He was a great father, and it's just really an absolute gem and an absolute legend. And in terms of impact on the business, the name. I'll tell you what, that is a very short list of people that have had a bigger impact on this business than Scott Hall, and he is one of the very few two-time World Hall of Famers as well, which is something to be said. So there you go.
Yeah. I know we could probably talk all night about Scott Hall, but one of the interesting notes I picked up as I was doing a little research on him before we went on air tonight was, I guess it was WrestleMania 9. And you're the encyclopedia, so if I'm wrong, please correct me. But he's wrestling Backlund, and he's the heel, and Backlund's the face. And evidently, during that match, the crowd pretty much started cheering for Razor Ramon over Bob Backlund because they were just so enamored with him. And then back in that time, especially, that wasn't really done, where heels were being cheered on in such a way. And that just, again, is a testament to the man's personality, his talent, and just, the connection that he had with the audience. And you know what? Like, I kept on amusing myself because it kept on showing up in different news feeds. That footage of him getting hit with a bullseye drink in the side of the head while the NWO is in the middle of the ring, and he just, as if just didn't even get phased by it. He just made it part of his routine in the ring, and just didn't break character, and it just showed you what a professional he was, and what a gifted like talent he was, man. It's just so funny, and the memories that he left us. The world's a better place, really. Just have had him in it. So bittersweet day for you and I. It's really one of those things that we all have to deal with, and unfortunately, sometimes these days are tougher than others. And today's one of them.
What is your favorite moment, Scott Hall, with Scott Hall in his career? Or favorite moment or two?
You know what? The ladder match with Shawn Michaels, that was. And if you want to talk influence, like, that match was the one that sort of ripped the Band-Aid off and involved two uber talented in-ring performers that are two different sizes, had great chemistry, and they put on a hell of a show. And it's a match that still influences today. That was one that in terms of wrestling, was great. And on a personal level, and even it's probably even misogynistic at this point, but back in the day, and I swear to you, if I can find this footage, it left an impact with me. There was a tag team match that Nash and Hall did, and I don't know if these women were dancers of some sort, or maybe adult actresses, but they had a tag team match with these two ladies, and they ended up jobbing to them on WCW Nitro. And it was just, I remember I'm probably in a room with like three or four other guys, and we watched that match, and we were just laughing out loud at the antics of Nash and Hall, where it was just, they were the clown princes of the evening. And for the life of me, I've seen it once. I don't know if I could track this match down. I doubt it's on the Peacock network. But man, I just remember laughing so hard that I had tears in my eyes for those two guys, because you could just tell they were having a blast, and the crowd was reacting to it. And again, you couldn't get away with it today by any means, but it's another one of those moments with Hall. I still laugh and chuckle about it to this day. And what about you?
It wouldn't be a specific moment. My favorite aspect of Scott Hall was his mannerisms in the ring, and if he would always overreact or sell something, or the way he would joke around and basically clown his opponents, whether it be doing that thing, whether it be whatever the case may be, throwing the toothpick in his face. The presence the guy did, his strut, his walk down, but I have to be pinned down on the moment. You would have to say it. As a wrestler, you have to say the ladder match. That was his best, I think, singles match. But
Yeah.
I think overall, I just loved his first promo introducing himself to the WCW and that they were taking over. We're taking over. He even opened it with "Hey Yo," and he even had the Spanish accent. He still had the Spanish accent there briefly, but at the end of the day, those two moments are just so iconic. I'll tell you what, dude. I even liked his. He was my favorite promo when the NWO invaded WWE in 2002. When he said, we're marks. We're just like you." And his performance, even though I guess he and Stone Cold were never happy with that match, his performance during that whole build, like when he's cheering for Hulk Hogan or Run the Rock over with a chair, he's like jumping up and down like a schoolgirl. Just the thing like that Scott Hall, the little ambiance that he added to the storylines, to the reactions to what was happening in the storyline. Not only that, he was also the reason Goldberg got his first loss. Thank goodness for that.
Yes. That and the cattle prod.
The cattle prod, that's right. The cattle prod got him. And then, Big Sexy dropped him on his head. Not literally, but the next night, there was a finger poke of doom, and Bill Goldberg tried to punch his way through a fucking car like the genius that he is. And he had to be written off TV for several months.
And then I saw this stat too, that Razor Ramon was the first interview on the first Raw.
He was a monster. He was the second babyface behind like The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels. I guess that'd be the third babyface.
Yeah.
He was always a guy who would close the house shows oftentimes. And again, usually your best Intercontinental champions were typically your heels. I mean, I guess there's Bret Hart, but he didn't have it an extraordinary long time. And he lost it and then he got it back. But Mr. Perfect had it for well over a year. Randy Macho Man Savage had it for well over a year. The Honky Tonk Man, not that he was great, but the heels are the ones that usually had that championship. Scott Hall was the first one in a long time that was a babyface Intercontinental title and had it and really gave it prestige as a babyface. Because even Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, when he won it, he lost it to the Honky Tonk Man like 2 months later because he had a contract issue. So Scott Hall really and Razor Ramon really brought the Intercontinental title, I thought, to a higher level that it hadn't been before he got it. I think it was kind of lacking a little something before he got that title again. Well, it was Shawn Michaels and then Scott Hall, but Shawn Michaels got hurt and then it became the Scott Hall thing. And again, I just think it's a fantastic situation. Scott Hall and Razor Ramon alone brought that Intercontinental Championship so much more prestige than it had. But it still wasn't bad though. It wasn't like it is now. Like the Intercontinental title is a joke now, but yeah, Scott Hall, Razor Ramon, we love you and thank you so much for all the entertainment you brought us here from High Spots and Cheap Hops. We'll be right back, guys.
I try to fast forward, I never look behind me, but there's always a mirror in my way. And I go on this world and I try to avoid my image. I can't see myself for what I am today. And all of my yesterdays are beautiful like fairy tale. Brings a smile to my face every time. But it's amazing with all the bites and smiles that I get into. All of these tears I've cried. Seems like there's a room within my heart. Doesn't get much light anymore. But I hear your distant shadow as a darkening yellow lightning, and you open up the door. It's so real now, you hear me now, you go, whoa. And it's so real and the truth is moving on. And what is real, can you help me understand? It's real, it's so real, oh, and it's so real that you go. And it's so real and the tree keeps moving on. And what is real, can you help me understand? It's so real, 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 it's so real.